Hey there, everybody. Just getting started in a moment here. All right, it looks like it may be happening for Smoothie Shred today. I'm still working on this algorithm. All right, we got Instagram going, YouTube's going, Facebook's going. And now let's see if somehow... I do not know why it's making it so hard to share online. So let me go back to my other way of doing it and sharing it from my other page. 1 second, Smoothie Shredders. Might have to find a new way of streaming because that's just will not do at all. Here we go. Facebook. You know, they're always changing these algorithms up just to keep us guessing. Those of us who are trying to share with the public, always having to guess on what we can do to make it work. All right, we are live in all areas here. Hey, everybody, it's Dr. Brooke Goldner from Goodbye Lupus, and I'm here today because it's Wednesday. And on Wednesdays, I come on live as a public service to help those of you out there all over the world get better health, reverse disease, feel happier, and live better lives. Now, this can't substitute for medical care, but I'm here to help in every way I can. Make sure you talk to your doctor before making big changes to your diet and lifestyle. So a couple things I want to talk to you about today. Number one, still purple. It is Lupus Awareness Month, and it is really important that we keep sharing awareness of everything that we can do. Let me just adjust this camera a little bit. Let me see here. Is that better? Okay, I think so. So I want to make sure that we spread awareness not only of the illness itself and help people who are struggling to get their diagnosis, but also of everything that we can do to fight it, because there is so much we can do. So I also want to remind you, if you haven't yet, that to make sure that you are watching my free classes, or if you've already seen them, maybe you share them with people in your life that you know need to see them at goodbyelupus.com. They're completely free for the month of May for Lupus Awareness Month. So even if you don't have lupus, make sure you go and watch them, okay? So they're at goodbyelupus.com. And one of the issues I wanted to talk about today actually impacts people with lupus, as well as people with many other diseases, whether it's autoimmune disease, diabetes, heart disease, whether you're struggling with your weight. One of the biggest factors that people struggle with the most when it comes to getting healthy is not just getting the right information, right? I'm here every week giving information. My protocol has been released to the public since 2015 with the book Goodbye Lupus. The information is out there. The problem people struggle with is applying it, is getting themselves to change how they eat. So what I wanted to talk about today is about that, about why you might be struggling to make these changes. So for any of you who are struggling, and please let me know in the comments whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, if you relate to any of this. But one of the major struggles that people don't realize that they have is actually food addiction. A lot of times I see people and they think that they just don't have motivation. They think that they're weak. And it takes a huge emotional toll on them, on top of having these illnesses that they have, that they also feel so bad about themselves that they can't stick with the program that they know can help them. How many of you can relate to that? How many of you feel that? I'll give you an example. I was talking to a wonderful woman yesterday. And by the way, all of you that I get to meet, I love it. I love it so much. So my appointments online are 75 minutes. And when I get to actually see the person who's listening to me and we get to have these conversations about their lives, I wish I could spend all day with each one of you, but at least it's 75 minutes where I get to know you and really help you in your life. And I met this wonderful, wonderful woman yesterday who's struggling with what we call metabolic syndrome. So she didn't know, first of all, that she had it. Her doctors hadn't explained it to her. But metabolic syndrome is something that's very common in the Western world, especially, where people have a combination of obesity, high blood lipid markers, high blood pressure, and insulin resistance or diabetes. And the reason they created a syndrome around it is not to create more stigma, but because that constellation of symptoms dramatically raises people's risk of dying from heart attacks and strokes. And even with lupus, the #1 cause of death is heart attack. Why? Because most people with lupus still develop metabolic syndrome, right? Or many components of it. They still develop obesity and high blood pressure, right? And high cholesterol, all of these issues, high blood sugar. And she said that she's been struggling with this for a long time, and all of her doctors have just said, you need to lose weight. If you lose weight, all these things will get better. And with the time we spent together, I helped her understand, first of all, what she had. Nobody had ever explained to her what metabolic syndrome was. Nobody had ever gone through all of her lab tests and markers with her. And she wasn't even aware that she was in stage 3 chronic renal disease. Nobody explained that to her before, and that helped her motivation. But it's important to me, and I think one of the reasons I'm really effective with people as their doctor, as well as their wellness coach, is spending the time to really understand what's getting in a person's way. She didn't lack the knowledge that she had to lose weight. She understood it, but none of her doctors told her how. How do I do this? And so we talked about all the things that have gotten in her way, because she wants to do my protocol. She wants to get healthy. She has a beautiful, wonderful life that she wants to live, but she's struggling because of food addiction. And she said she never even realized she was food addicted until she started watching me, all right? So I thought, you know what? This is not just affecting her. It's affecting many people who think they lack motivation, who maybe are even feeling shamed by their doctor or other people who are like, why don't you just eat better? Why don't you just lose weight? Or even for yourselves, like, I want to get rid of this lupus. Why can't I stop eating crap? Right? Why do I keep relapsing? How many of you are dealing with that, where you do it and you start getting results and then you relapse, right? So really, really important information. So what I wanted to do today is help you with that piece of the puzzle, okay? And this is a lot of the work that, the reason why people sign up for programs with me, like Rapid Recovery, where I'm working with you every day. Like my next Rapid Recovery group is August 22nd. A lot of people sign up for that. This is the reason, right? Is to get this kind of support rather than here, this is the right way to eat, go do that, right? But I want to give you those tools so all of you that I can't meet can work on this on your own, okay? So I made up a little quiz. I was writing about this while I was preparing for you. All right, if you can say yes to any of these things, then it's very likely you have food addiction. All right, you ready? So you can just take notes for yourself. Number 1, you find the idea of giving up the foods that you enjoy eating completely unbearable. The idea of giving up meat, dairy, sugar, junk, whatever, that you find that just emotionally just an unbearable thought, right? That's 1. 2, you use food for your coping. If it's a hard day, it's your comfort, right? That when you're stressed out, you use food to feel better. All right. 3, you have tried and failed to change your diet. You keep relapsing, going back to the old things. 4, relapse has been a part of your life anytime you've tried to change the way you eat or live. All right. So the 1 3 is really that you have tried, but then you fail, right? And then you're just done. But 4 would be you continually try and fail, right? That you could do it for a short period of time and then you're off, whether it's dieting to lose weight, whether it's changing your health in any way, that you tend to have that problem. And then this is a big one. You continue to eat things that you know are bad for you, that you know are harmful to you, in spite of knowing better. So in spite of knowing that it's creating a risk to yourself. So for example, this lovely woman I was talking to, she knows she didn't know her kidneys were bad, but she knows she has diabetes. She knows she has high blood pressure. She knows that she has all these different health problems, and she just can't stop eating bad stuff. All right. And this is a really important one, because the definition of addiction is the act of continually going after your drug of choice or food-like drug of choice in spite of negative consequences. So if you compulsively and continuously eat things that you know make you more inflamed and sicker, then that is the act of an addict. Think of people who are addicted to drugs, people who are addicted to alcohol. They know it's hurting their body. They know it's destroying their liver. They know it's hurting their heart. They know it's making them lose jobs, lose friends. and they compulsively continue to do it anyway. That is what addicts do. And so if you find that you compulsively and continuously reach for things to eat that you know are contributing to your illness, you know they're bad for you, that is one of the key signals that you have addiction, okay? So what do you do about it, all right? That's an important thing, right? What do we actually do about it to make it better? Well, I spent a lot of years working in addiction. So before I wrote Goodbye Lupus and became known for and sought out for reversing diseases using nutrition and lifestyle, I was a trauma specialist. I was medical director at a nonprofit helping people who were homeless, coming out of juvenile justice, foster care, and helping them adjust back into society. I absolutely loved doing that work. And a lot of folks in that age range, 18 to 25, coming out of foster care, coming out of juvenile justice, homelessness, a lot of those folks had addictions, all right? Drug addictions like crack, methamphetamine, all sorts of other types of terrible drugs, alcohol, of course. And I spent a lot of time helping those folks overcome their addictions. The people I see today who are not homeless, who are not coming out of jail or foster care, they have the same behaviors and symptoms when it comes to quitting their drug of choice, which might be cake or cheese or bacon, right? The same exact ones. And the process is the same. In fact, when people come off of their drug of choice, right? So when you look at folks who are coming off of, for example, methamphetamine, what they tend to do is gain a lot of weight. Why? Because the brain knows it can get that same dopamine hit, maybe not quite the same, but it can hit the dopamine button again if they eat lots and lots of sugar and processed foods. And so what happened is they would start eating tons of sugar, tons of chips, and then big caffeine energy drinks, trying to hit the dopamine button in their brain because they were addicted to such a high level. So we see that all the time. You'll see people switch from drugs and alcohol to smoking. You also see them switch to sugar, right? Maybe you've seen that in folks that you know, because it hits the same button. There have been many tests that have been done on poor animals that had no choice in the matter, where they found that if they give a mouse, for example, access to a lever, and if they push the lever and they get food, they will push that lever multiple times a day and they will eat, right? They take that same mouse and they keep the lever for food, and now they attach an electrode into their brain. Yes, scientists did this. And that electrode hits the dopamine switch for them. They feel a dopamine rush every time they hit this new lever. They will instinctively do nothing but hit the dopamine lever in their brain and stop eating until they die. Now, humans do the same thing. We have not done experiments on humans using an electrode in their brain, but notice people who are addicted to drugs. What happens? They stop eating. That's why they become so skinny, is they're getting so much pleasure and reward from dopamine in their brain from their drug that they don't need food to give them a high, and they stop eating. They stop seeking it out till they die. They're literally dying. Now, if you are eating foods, and I'll put foods in quotes, if you're eating drug-like foods that you know are killing you, you have diabetes, you have high blood pressure, you have kidney failure, you have autoimmune disease, and you're continuing to eat ultra-processed items like chips, sugary stuff like candy, you're eating meat and dairy, all of these things that you know harm you, if you're eating them anyway, that is addictive behavior. So what do we do when we help people recover from addiction? Well, with food addiction, it's going to be the same as drug addiction, okay? Because it is a drug. And by the way, it is a drug. She asked me yesterday, why am I addicted to food? And I said, that is not your fault. That's by design. Because we live, at least here in this country, we live in a country where there are scientists who work for food companies whose job it is to create the most addictive product possible. And they have found there's a right combination of oil, sugar, salt, etc., that when you put them together, it creates the most addictive product possible. And it is why if you have one chip, you eat the whole bag, because it lights up that addictive part of your brain. So it's on purpose, because it's about making money. And the lobbyists for processed foods, for meat and dairy also hit the dopamine button. I mean, dairy itself actually has a morphine derivative in it. It's called casomorphine, cheese morphine, all right, milk morphine. So they're literally all addictive products that harm us. But for example, when I've testified to the US Dietary Guidelines Committee multiple times, they allow all the industries to testify to why the US should continue recommending their products. And so they have lobbyists. I don't get paid to lobby. I just show up and take time out of my day to plead with them to make a difference for human health by telling people to eat better. But there are plenty of lobbyists out there who are working hard to make sure that our government continues to allow them to poison the public. Not poison them so they die immediately. If you ate one bite and died, no, but slowly. And don't worry, if your cholesterol goes up, if your blood pressure goes up, if you get autoimmune disease, well, we got pills for that. So then the pharmaceutical industry is also very pleased with this. It's about money. But we're going to do something different, right? I'm here for free right now because I want to see you be better. And I want you to understand this. So how do you stop this cycle? Like every addiction, the first step is you have to admit you have a problem. You must do it. You must do it. As long as you tell yourself you do not have a problem, you will continue to eat in the way that is killing you, okay? So I want you to take that first step and admit this is a problem for you. You must do that. Once you admit the problem, then we have the ability to take action. What are the actions? Number one, you have to tell the people around you have this problem. Just like people who are, those of you who are in recovery, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, what's the first? You have to tell people, I have a problem, I have an addiction. Why is that important? Because when you go to a family party, they're going to say, oh, it's so good to see you. I made these cookies for you. It's your favorite. I made this cheese something for you. I made this. And you have to be able to say, I'm sorry, I actually don't eat that anymore. And they'll go, oh, but you look so good. You've lost weight. What's a little going to do? I can't have a little. If I have a little, I'm going to eat all of it. And it's going to put me off my diet for months while I try to come back from my addiction, because the cravings get better once you've been away for it for about a month. But the moment you taste it again and you set off that drug reaction in your brain, it's like a smoker who's been clean for a month having one cigarette, boom, they're back to a pack a day, right? So you have to let people know, listen, I cannot eat that stuff. I have no self-control around it. So thank you. I know it's amazing. I know it's delicious, but I'm on a health kick right now, so I appreciate it. And also, if you tell them in advance, then they won't do that. So, I always recommend, tell your friends, do not offer me any junk. I am on a diet, and this one I'm sticking to. Please support me, okay? Number two, you got to be 100% sober. You can't do a little bit if you have a food addiction. And all of you who are listening, who have checked those boxes when I asked you, do you say yes to any of this? You know it, right? You can't, a lot of folks, and what this lady did is she'd be good, and then she'd have one thing that she knew was bad for her, and then go, well, I've already ruined my day. I might as well keep going. How many of you have done that? And then keep eating, and keep eating. And then tomorrow the same, and tomorrow the same. And next thing you know, it's been 2 months and you're still eating all junk. You have to stay clean 100% to keep yourself sober from these foods, okay? Very, very important. You need to get the right support. The reason that they have anonymous meetings, for alcoholism, for narcotics, all of these things, is because it's very difficult to do it all. And it's why we're very effective with things like food addiction in my rapid recovery group, because now people suddenly have a group of people who all at the same time are trying to eat optimally for their own health issues. And some people are in kidney failure, and some people have heart disease, and other people have diabetes, and other people have rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, scleroderma, Sjogren's, amyloid, all these different things. They're all trying to heal different things. We had 2 people in my last group that didn't have health problems, but just wanted to optimize their retirement. I love that, right? But the majority of people in there are trying to heal something by eating in this very specific way. And being with others helps. On top of that, we actually give them feedback every day and accountability. So every day they have to show us what they ate, every day. Whether it was on plan or off plan, they have to show us what they ate. We never shame them. But if they eat off plan, we work on it together to see what triggered you. And then we solve that trigger so it never does that again. And then if they eat off plan another time, first we congratulate them for having all that period of being well and sticking with it. And then what triggered you this time? And we make a new plan for that until they become bulletproof, right? So having accountability, having a support group, and then having coaches who know how to fix it, who know how to help you overcome it. So make sure you have a support system in place to help you keep going, okay? And also, it's important to realize that relapse is part of sobriety. We made this little picture today that I want to show you so that you can understand how this works. Because I think one of the biggest problems, well, I know one of the biggest problems is people tend to really punish themselves when they relapse and think like, I'm such a screw up. And then that demotivates, because why try again and then feel like a screw up again? That's the worst feeling in the world, right? So in order to avoid how bad it feels to fail, sometimes they stop trying, but then you keep the sickness, right? So let me show you the psychology. And I've showed this before, but it's been a while, and I made a new picture. Let me see here. Let me share just this screen here so you can see what we made. So I'm going to teach you a little bit of psychology here. This is the psychology of beating an addiction, all right? And let me see if I can make it any bigger for you. If not, I'm going to read it to you. So let's make it a little bigger, see if we can, okay. So what this says is pre-contemplation, contemplation, action, and relapse, okay? And here it says maintenance. And what I want you to get from this, and this is the work I do with people. Pre-contemplation, what that means is, I don't have a problem, you have a problem. I don't have a problem. You know folks like that where you go, you have high cholesterol and cancer, you should really not be eating bacon. That is carcinogen. What are you doing? They go, no, it's not. It's fine. My doctor said I can eat whatever I want. That's pre-contemplation. You know what? People in pre-contemplation often are not watching me, because why would you watch someone talk about health if you don't have a problem? Contemplation means I am now realizing I have an issue. How many of you are in contemplation right now? I have a problem. I have a problem. I don't know what to do about the problem, but I have a problem, right? After contemplation, finally, and this is the preparation place, there's action. Action is, today is the day. I'm adding nourishment to my body. I am now, I'm eating cruciferous vegetables. I'm making my green smoothies, right? That's action taking right there. Beautiful. But what happens after action as a normal part of changing your health is relapse. This is normal. Now, a few things can happen from relapse, all right? And this is normal. This is the psychology of beating any addiction, all right? Relapse can lead to contemplation again, meaning, oh man, I really do have a problem, but I'm still relapsed. I'm still eating junk. I have a problem, but I'm still eating junk. I know I have a problem, right? It could do that. And a lot of folks do that, right? And spend months going, man, I really need to do something about this. But what I try to do, what I work on with my clients, is relapse can also lead to action right away. You could eat a cookie and then immediately throw out the bag, grab a green smoothie, and move on. So relapse can also lead right back to action. And the more often you continuously take action, eventually that action will lead to maintenance, meaning you are out of the cycle of addiction. See the cycle here. You're out, you're free, you're healthy. That's where I am now. That's where a lot of my clients are now, right? You break free, and this is how you get to health. So if you are relapsing, I want you to understand that means you had to have taken action. So I'm proud of you for that, because you cannot relapse if you're contemplating, right? If you're contemplating, you're not doing it yet. You're just thinking. Thinking doesn't heal anything, right? You can only relapse if you've been taking action. So that means you are now one cycle away, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 20 away from the sticking. And how do you get from action, from this cycle of action, relapse, action into maintenance? Every time you relapse, you have to examine your triggers and you have to change what you do to react to those triggers. If you eat from stress from work, then you need a new action plan for when you get stressed. Whether you call a friend, where you go for a walk, whether you hit the gym, you need something else you do when it comes to stress. You need to do things to reduce your stress. If you tend to relapse when you're tired, we need to work on your sleep. None of this has to do with becoming a better person. way. Like a lot of times people are like, I'll try harder tomorrow. It's not because of your abilities and you're trying. It's because we have to come up with game plans. And if every time you relapse, we get you back to action and fix the problem, eventually it's going to go this way. And that's going to be the goal. Okay. So I want you to understand this so that you can get out of this cycle. All right. Because as long as you're living in this circle, you feel like a failure, right? But if you can get from contemplation to action, even if it's to relapse, you are on your way to getting better. And if you're struggling to get out of the relapse cycle, then you need all the things I just talked about. You need to tell people so they can support you. You need to stay 100% clean and stop telling yourself you can have a bite. You can't. Any more than an alcoholic can have one glass of wine. You can't, right? And you have to make sure that you get the support you need so that you can fix the issues and finally free yourself of that cycle. And the good news is you can absolutely get out of that cycle. You absolutely can. I see people do it every day. And, you know, at the end of our session that I had yesterday, she was in tears just finally having a hope and an actual game plan. I gave her a very specific game plan of here's what you're going to do. Here's how you're going to eat. Here's what your steps are going to be. You got to have that game plan. So I hope that that helps you figure out what you really need. It is not because you're weak. You're strong. If you're living with disease, you're strong. And you've done harder things than changing your diet. You've just been missing some of the tools. And it might be that you've been missing the fact that this is not just about working harder, trying harder. Overcoming addiction is extremely hard. And it needs to be done in a methodical way, like I just showed you. And when you do that, you will be free and you'll be healthy. So I hope my little lesson today has helped some of you who realize this is what you need. If you want my help to do it, my husband and I are experts in food addiction. He's an incredible coach in food addiction as well. A lot of folks see him very regularly, once a week, once every 2 weeks, so that he can keep doing that action I just showed you. What happened with the relapse? Make sure we have a game plan and keep them stronger. And people are losing, you know, incredible amounts of weight, incredible amounts of inflammation, and getting well, because that was the one part that was never addressed for them, was how to overcome the food addiction, how to create the coping skills that allow food to no longer be a coping skill anymore. So there's more to it, but I wanted to leave time to answer questions about this as well. But I hope that that starts helping you understand the problem of food addiction and how it might be getting in your way of you living your life the way you want to. And if it does, then it was time well spent with you today. So I hope it does that. If you know you want our help, if you go to goodbyelupus.com, we have, you can see Work with Dr. G, and you can make appointments with Thomas or myself. With severe food addiction, the higher the support, the better. So my rapid recovery group is another great option. Our next group is August 22nd. We're not going to have one before then. And so that one, I think we're not full yet for that one. But I expect it to be sooner rather than later, because there's not going to be one in June. So they always do sell out. But if that's something that you know you want to do, that's a great option as well. And we love it. We work with people every single day to help them with the accountability, the coaching, releasing the shame, and figuring out the real reasons for the relapse. It's not because they're weak, but because there's something that needs to be healed, and allowing that to be healed so that they can then continue on and let themselves have that full recovery. So goodbyelupus.com, you can check all that out. You can see my free classes there. So if you need the information, go to goodbyelupus.com, click on the free classes that are happening through the month of May. So you have the information. Keep coming to my Wednesdays so you get extra help in answering your questions. And if you need more support than that, that's literally what I do. Whenever I'm not here talking to you on Wellness Wednesday, I'm coaching people to help them get to their health and their wellness. And obviously the information on the diet's available. The rest of it is helping people actually achieve it. So I hope that this time I spent with all of you today helps all of you get closer to that as well. All right, let me see here. Let's go into some of the questions that you had today. See if there's one specifically related to this. I'm going to scroll down. Let's see. Oh, we're going to start with a celebration though. This I have to. Yay. All right. For Blunky, I said I had a one-on-one appointment with Dr. G for CKD, chronic kidney disease, on April 1st, so about a month and 2 weeks ago. A month later, 50% increase in glomerular filtration rate, that's kidney function, down from 100 units of insulin to less than 20, and no blood pressure medicines. Woo! That is what I'm talking about, everybody. You see that? Like, that is someone who's conquering their food addictions and winning. So goodbye hypertension. We're saying goodbye to diabetes, and kidney function up 50%. That's what healing looks like. Congratulations. I am so happy to see you celebrating that. That is the coolest thing. Yay. All right, let's see here. That's normal in my practice, right? That's what I love. I just love watching people get better. It's the coolest thing ever. All right, let's see here. Western Shambhala says, I guess we have to leave troublemaker foods out of our dopamine quest and replace it with something else. Yes, and very insightful. One of the tools that we use with folks is replace the benefit. For example, if you normally go out for dopamine on the weekend, but the way you get your dopamine is with like a cheeseburger and a beer, how about instead you go out for dopamine by going to sing karaoke, going to see a comedy show? Thomas and I are seeing a comedy show on Friday. We go to the Improv all the time. Go see a comedy show. Go see some live music. In the past few weeks, I've seen Joan Jett and Billy Idol on the lawn seats so I could dance. I have seen a comedy show. I've gone to a car show. I've gone axe throwing. I've sang karaoke. I'm out and about, right? So we can get dopamine from friendships, from adventures. Oh, we've been doing indoor skydiving. I can now turn right and left and go forward and backwards in the indoor. It's like an air tunnel. I won't jump out of a plane, but it's like an air, you get to fly. That's dopamine, right? So I'm pursuing dopamine in so many ways that a salad is awesome. I don't need it to get me high, right? I'm already hitting that buzzer in my brain all the time. So that is a great insight. Great insight. Yes, Natasha is saying, I've struggled with food addiction since childhood. So many Oreos and pizza. Oh my God, did you have my childhood? I think we're sharing a childhood. But yes, absolutely. Western Shambhala asking, is it addiction or just a desire to have the foods you grew up with? I love the taste of cheese pasta, butter, steak. A green smoothie is delicious, but doesn't hit the dopamine. It's absolutely addiction. Because listen, there is definitely an emotional component to food where you can connect it with your childhood. My childhood was pizza, macaroni and cheese, Doritos, but that's not what the essence of my childhood was. The really beautiful parts of my childhood was dancing with my grandmother and learning the polka. I can polka, guys. And reading books with my dad and talking about all the characters and stuff. We would read like old English literature and things together. Big talks with my mom. My mom's the empath, about really trying to understand other people and feel their feelings and live a life of service and all this stuff. Like the most rich, beautiful parts of my childhood came from the people and the time spent, not from the stuff on the table. So we do associate the high of those items with people and the other memories, but we can create beautiful and profound experiences of love and companionship without eating those items. It's just most people have traditions of adding drugs to events, right? On a birthday, sugar, right? You know, on holidays, really high density, unhealthy foods plus the alcohol, right? So we have done that, but we can undo that. We can make fun take the space of that too. All right, let's see here. What are some people on Instagram? Let's see. Anybody had some thoughts about that? Oh, Katina Backlund says, it's difficult to withstand my unhealthy food when my 4 grown kids and my husband eat and buy other stuff. Exactly. So again, if you're an addict, which means that if that's in the house, you can't avoid eating it, right? At this point, I don't have an issue with that. You could put all the stuff that I used to eat my entire childhood that I thought was the best in front of me, and I want nothing to do with it, right? I'm over it. I know what it is. It doesn't tempt me anymore. It's like when people have been ex-smokers for a really long time and then they smell it and go, ugh, how could anybody do that, forgetting that they did it for 20 years, right? But if you are in the state where if you see it, it's going into this hole in your face and you can't stop the compulsion, that's addiction. That means you have to tell your family, listen, I'm trying to overcome my addiction to these things. I need your help. I can't do it. So you need to either take it out of the house so that I don't have access to it, or lock it somewhere where I don't know where it is or don't have the code. I literally had a client who made her husband get a lockbox and put a lock on the junk food where she doesn't know the combo. And another 4-weeker, love her. She's very short, so she had her husband put his junk food over the fridge where she couldn't reach it. So you have to let people know, right? If you were an alcoholic, would they drink alcohol in front of you and say, yeah, too bad you're not having any, and just hope that you stay sober? Or would they only have alcohol when they're out without you, or keep it somewhere where they, drink it where you're not a part of it? So you need it to be treated exactly the same way, with the same level of seriousness. And that's going to make the difference. And you have to let people know, just as I was saying, so they can help you. Let's see. All right. Strong Cindy, emotional eating is huge. Can you suggest something to stop it? Yes. So again, so if I was working with you, then what we'd be looking at is the exact situations when you have eaten badly because of an emotional state. What happened? What were you feeling? Right? So usually there's very specific things that will trigger people, not all emotions, but certain emotions. And then I'd be looking with you on how do we treat those emotions in a way that you actually get the comfort you need. So if you're having a strong craving, ask yourself, am I actually hungry? And if not, am I bored or do I need comfort? And if I need comfort, we don't get comfort from the refrigerator. We don't get comfort from a bag of chips. Comfort has to come from people we love. Comfort has to come from going to do something soothing for ourselves, right? So if you have a partner that you like, comfort might be going and getting a cuddle and saying, oh, I'm feeling really stressed today. I can really use a cuddle. Or hey, you want to go take a bath with me? Something like that, right? Comfort can be calling up a friend, talking to a therapist. There's so many things we can do for comfort. Pouring yourself a nice hot bath, Epsom salts, beautiful music, reading a book, right? To give yourself comfort. So you want to actually look at the specific situations, what triggered you, see what you can do to solve the triggers, and then find new game plans for things that will actually work for you for your comfort. And if I knew you, I would know better which things actually work for you for comfort. And you have to continuously do it while also committing to be completely clean and sober from those foods. Yeah. All right, let's see what people on Facebook. I'd like to see it. You all are really interacting on this. It's a big thing, right? And it's not talked about. And I find a lot of folks really feel some relief knowing this, because it is very hard walking around thinking that you are just somehow not good enough, not strong enough to do what you need to do. And it's just not true. You absolutely can do this, but you need to be aware of what's holding you back. And if what's holding you back is the fact that you have an addiction that you haven't treated, then that's going to be one of the most important things that we do. All right. Let's see here. Healthy done my way. This visual of beating addiction gave me incredible insight. That's fantastic. All right, let's see here. Okay, let's scroll up and see what people have been asking from the beginning here. Let's see what YouTube's got going on. All right. So Lux says, I'm grateful for what you do. I developed a soy allergy, so tofu caused my throat to close and tongue swelling. I also have endometriosis. Any good substitute? You don't need to substitute for tofu. Tofu is not a necessary food. If you mean for phytoestrogen, then flax seeds. Okay. Lorena Delgado says, Dr. G, I wake, toss, and turn every 2 hours. How many consecutive hours of sleep do you need for the body to rejuvenate, repair itself? Also, is an optimal time to go to bed? Thank you. Well, when it comes to sleep, you'll know because you wake up rested, right? I usually try to make sure people get at least 7 hours, but many people need more than that. I'd be looking at why you're waking up and tossing and turning every 2 hours. So I'd be looking at how to create a sleep routine. We do this even in my group. Like, there's a lot of people with sleep issues. So figuring out what are you doing before bed? Because you need a routine that you do the same thing every night to help your brain and your body relax, whether it's a hot bath to relax the muscles and your brain, reading for pleasure, journaling, right? That you have a routine, because it sounds like while you can fall asleep, you might not be fully relaxed. And so your brain is still on alert. For some folks, it's because they have anxiety issues. And so we really have to work on the brain part, on really calming the brain, working through anxiety. I literally have, in my group, we have every day there's emotional work every single day. And we work on sleep, we work on anxiety, we work on trauma, we work on forgiveness, we work on all the things that keep people sick. Right? Because when you have all these different issues, it affects your sleep, it affects your ability to stick with the right food, but it also makes you sick in and of itself. And so we have whole segments about this, like how to deal with anxious thoughts. And so I'd be looking at, again, without knowing you, I don't know what's triggering the wake up, but if it's that, then you need a sleep routine, a sleep time, and you need to make sure that you're clearing your head of a lot of the thoughts and things that might be keeping you up. I'd also make sure that you're not doing things that make it harder to sleep at night, like exercising in the evening can do it. Taking B vitamins and D vitamins at night can keep people awake as well. Make sure you take those in the morning. So that I'd be looking at all of those things. But you'll know when you get enough sleep because you'll feel rested when you get up. Okay. Donna, I've been following protocol for 7 weeks. I'm still itchy from lichen planopolaris. Should I try cutting fruit? Any suggestions? Well, you didn't say what protocol. So if you're doing hypernourishment, goodbye lupus protocol, goodbye autoimmune protocol. So I'm not sure. So if you're not doing the full goodbye autoimmune protocol, do that. Number 2, make sure you're doing it correctly. If you're not in our Smoothie Shred group in Facebook, that's a great place to go, where we keep updating the protocols in the guides section. And if you're getting it completely right, then you can try things like cutting fruit just to see if that's something that's affecting you. And if you're not getting any changes, then I would look to get support from us to make sure that you're doing it right, with an appointment with Thomas or myself, or Rapid Recovery as well, to make sure that that's getting better. Okay. Let's see. Let's go into Facebook. Let's see. So many people who are commenting. Don't worry, Karen. If you're still struggling, that means that you're still trying, you're still contemplating, you're still taking action, you're still relapsing. That means that you're in the process, right? Annette, you're welcome. Casey, I believe I have food addiction. Yeah, it's okay. You don't need a sad face. Information is power, right? Because then you know that there's something you can do, that it's not your fault, right? It's not your fault, and there's something you can do about it. Elliot says, I'm struggling because my boyfriend doesn't support me. He thinks I'm wrong. Well, here's the thing about supporting people, is you don't have to agree with someone to support them. That's about respect, right? So you might not agree with someone else's beliefs, right? But that doesn't mean you disrespect them. You can still be supportive. So for example, I have a wonderful group of friends, and most of them are plant-based at all. And yet I have a few friends that anytime they have a get-together, even though I'm the only plant-based person in the group, every get-together they have is fully plant-based vegan, all of them, for everybody. And I've never asked for that. They do it automatically because they know I eat that way, so they just make the whole event that way. That's beautiful and supportive. Obviously, it's not what they do. It's not what they necessarily subscribe to, but they're supportive. I'm happy if someone just has food I can eat, period. But I have amazing friends, and that's who I let into my life, are people who are really, really supportive and loving to me, just as I am to them. But your partner doesn't have to agree. They don't have to eat the way you eat, but that doesn't mean that they should be sabotaging you. And so that tells me that in this relationship, there's a lack of respect and communication. So you need to explain it that way, that, listen, you may not understand what I do, you may not agree with what I do, but I need you to cheer me on. I need you to encourage me because it matters to me. And that should matter to you. And then be really specific about what you need them to do in order for you to feel supported. It's It's a really important part of relationships. A lot of times people will tell me that their main struggle, for example, is that their in-laws keep giving their kids junk, meat, dairy, processed items, even though they've told them they don't feed their kids that. And they think that like there's an issue with communication. No, it's an issue with respect. You're the parent. You decide what your children eat, and they need to respect you. And if they don't, you have a bigger problem than food, and that has to be discussed. So very, very important. All right, let's see. Right. Okay, Carol wants to know, I started out with a goodbye autoimmune protocol. I only lasted 4 weeks. Hey, that's pretty good. At least you got 4 weeks. I started making my own hummus. I found I could eat more than a pound of cruciferous vegetables with my green smoothie every day. I understand chickpeas are cooked, so I'm not doing goodbye autoimmune anymore, even though I'm not eating regular foods other than chickpeas. My question is, can eating too much cooked chickpeas affect my inflammation and interfere with my RA? Well, you had the answer to that already, right? So there are many people out there that do not need to do the full goodbye lupus protocol, goodbye autoimmune disease protocol to get the results. If they do an intense amount of hypernourishment and eat just non-inflammatory plant-based items like beans on the side, they get results. And that's wonderful. I'm happy for that. It's just more variable. Whereas we know when people do the full protocol, now that's the protocol that's going to bring down that inflammation like clockwork. It works. It just works, right? Whether it's RA, lupus, scleroderma, Sjogren's, the inflammation just comes down. So you now have an answer, right? If your rheumatoid symptoms are gone and you feel great, then hypernourishment with chickpeas is working for you. If you do not, if you still have your symptoms and they're not getting better, then you know it's interfering. And then you just make the decision to switch that to guacamole and get the results first, and then add the chickpeas back for the rest of your life. And that will work really well. All right, let's see. Oh, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. All right. All right, Maria says, I've been doing the goodbye autoimmune protocol to get shredded for my wedding in 3 months. Congratulations, Maria. Yay. I love marriage. I've been surprised by my own high energy levels on raw and already losing weight with much more fat via avocado and omega-3s in my diet. It's working and I feel full and satisfied. Thanks to you and Thomas. You're welcome. All right, I'll show that so I can also, I want to be able to with Thomas as well. If you don't have his book right here, Miracle Metabolism, it's a fantastic book, and it just really teaches behind the scenes what actually works for muscle building and fat loss, and he's really awesome. And he's the reason that I'm here right now, literally alive today. So I'm so excited for you. Yeah, our protocol works great for shredding fat. It raises your metabolic rate, and you get to eat avocados. Yay! Congratulations. So cool. All right, let's see here. All right. So LH, when you talk about this, my food addiction is more like a habit. Thinking about food all day and then binging at night. I think it's because I lack purpose. So when it comes to food addiction, what you're talking about right now is now in the current society, the phrase they use to describe that is food noise, right? So when you're constantly thinking about and obsessing about food, and you're right, one of the problems is you're not getting your happiness, your high from something else. So the way to break through food noise is to replace the high. So if you were feeling the cravings and then you went out for a run or you went out and lifted heavy weights, you would find that hit of norepinephrine and endorphins and dopamine would take away that thought, would remove it. If you had plans to go out on Friday night to go see a live comedy show and then you laughed so hard that you kept reliving the jokes with your friends for the next few days, that would take out some of the noise. So when you lack purpose and you lack joy, then you are in the state of deficiency when it comes to the happy brain chemicals that make us feel good, including dopamine. You have to put those into your life, and then you will stop looking for food to make you happy. It's just like someone who sits home and smokes marijuana all day because they feel depressed and have nothing to do with their life. And they're like, oh, I love marijuana. No, you don't. You're using it to hide from your life, and you're addicted to it. But if you can let that go and pursue more joy, pursue more happiness, then you can fill up on that, and then you won't care about food. Because food is not really, that isn't purpose, right? I mean, most folks I talk to, they're like, yeah, this stuff, it tastes the same. I've eaten it forever. There's no fulfillment anymore. It's now impulse, it's habit, it's addiction. And it's a really important thing for you to realize. And, this is why everything I do, there's a purpose behind it, right? The reason I emphasize things like your self-care is because I know that that's going to then give you more happiness and make it more easy to shift out of looking for food to give you that reward, that emotional reward. And that's why that's like the first week of my rapid recovery group. We are all in on helping people discover self-care, and through the whole group that replaces those highs, that makes them feel so fulfilled in their life that food can just be for healing, right? So that's really, really good. All right. Let's see here. All right, let's see what's going on over here in the Instagram world. Pull it over so it's easier to see. All right. Hi, Run for New York. Daisy, JCM. Hi, Dr. G. I have one kidney from donation, gallbladder removed, no suffering from cholesterol and high potassium. How can I control, now suffering, I think you meant, from cholesterol and high potassium. How can I control it? So if you need to be on a different plan to rein in potassium while optimizing things like kidney function, that's really a good time to work with me directly. Because listen, at this point, especially after publishing, getting someone off the transplant list for kidneys in 6 weeks, I see people with kidney failure every day. I mean, usually a quarter of the people in my group have kidney failure, because that is what people are coming to me with, right? And even in the last group, one person, goodbye nephritis, other person, kidney function up 30 points, another person, kidney function up 10 points. Like, it just works. Kidney function goes up. But when you, so I personalize the plans for people with kidney issues based off of their percentage of kidney function and how their body reacts to the foods. So if you are dealing with an issue where your potassium is shooting up, then that's a really good time to actually meet with me so that I can give you the right plan that'll work for your issues, right? So meeting with me, a rush appointment now is putting people out 12 weeks. Without a rush appointment, I think it's end of October, beginning of November. Rapid recovery is in August. So one of those ways, let's try to get you in so we can fix that. It's hard, besides telling you to do the low potassium version of the Goodbye Lupus protocol, I can't specify the amounts for you because I don't know your kidney function. Okay. Casey, hi, Dr. G. When you were with lupus, were you scared about the future and the uncertainty of this disease? When I was a kid, I wasn't. So I was diagnosed with lupus at 16. And while my initial visit with my doctor was scary when they said, you have 6 months to live unless you want to try this chemotherapy, that was scary. But then thanks to really my family, who helped me maintain great mental health through all of it, they just kept telling me, no, you're going to get through this. You have to take your pills. You have to take your chemotherapy, but plan for your future. You're going to college. You are going to live your life. You're going to do amazing things in this world. This is just something you're going to deal with and overcome. And so I fully internalized that, and I didn't let it hurt me. When I felt fearful, I remember it very clearly, was when I was in medical school. I was in my 3rd year of medical school, so I was working in hospitals at this point, and I got diagnosed with the anti-cardiolipin antibody after having multiple mini strokes. And it had started with, dots in my fingernails and dots in my arms. And I was a medical student, and I went to my own attending in family medicine and asked her about them. And she kind of brushed me off, but I knew myself. I think she just assumed all med students are hypochondriacs. I'd been living with lupus for quite some time at that point, over 10 years. I was not a hypochondriac. I actually didn't want any of the things in my medical school textbooks. But I started to feel some more anxiety going through medical school because I started learning about my disease. When I was 16, we didn't have internet. My son calls it the dark ages because we had no Wi-Fi. We had no internet. There was nowhere for me to search this. My mom gave me a book once and it was scary, so I got rid of it. And then I tried a support group once and everybody in it was disabled and looked horrible. And I said, I don't want to go there anymore. And so I just shut it off. But going to medical school and learning about my disease and how at risk I was all the time from all sorts of other diseases, and how much more limited my life would be, there started to be some, like, it was there, but I always thought of myself as a comeback kid. You know, I kept getting really sick and then coming back, you know, and so I preferred to think of myself that way. But when I got diagnosed with the anti-cardiolipin antibody and they told me that, you know, after I had a major episode, because I started getting double vision and I would have to hold onto the wall in the hospital while I was rounding on my patients in the hospital because the world would break into two and I'd have to wait, I don't know how long, seconds or so, until it came back together again and then keep working. And then I had an episode where I was in the clinic for family practice and I was seeing patients, and I went to lunch, came back, and I remember this moment where I looked up at the intern and he was talking to me, but I couldn't really understand what he was saying. And everything looked weird and I couldn't speak. And that's the last thing I remember until I remember waking up. And I was, I guess, asleep on my, I don't know if I was asleep or if I was just dissociated. I don't know. But I kind of woke up and the office was empty. And so they probably thought I was just another tired medical student. You know, we worked 80-hour weeks. And I was still very confused, though, or I wouldn't have driven home. But I was very confused. And I remember finding my keys, getting in my Jeep, and then not remembering how to get home. That was really weird. And I only lived a couple blocks from the clinic, and I'm driving, and I was driving really slowly, looking down every street to see if I saw the house, if it looked familiar. And I think at this point I was 25. And I finally saw my house, and I pulled up on the curb and I went to bed and I slept like the rest of the day. And it was weird. And I woke up the next day and I felt back to myself again, but I knew I was in trouble. So I went to see my doctors. I had my MRI and had all that done. And I found out that I was indeed sending blood clots into my brain, that it was a mini stroke, meaning there was no permanent damage. That's why it happened, but it went away. But I was in very, very high danger of having a major stroke or pulmonary embolism that was going to take me out or make me permanently disabled. And that was the moment that I felt the fear, really high fear, because I finally understood what I had as a medical student. I was very sick. So going through having to see the hematologist, being told I had to inject myself with blood thinners the rest of my life, being told once again, never get pregnant between your kidneys and your blood clots, knowing that disability was coming on faster for me because as I got older, I was getting more and more health issues. That was scary. And I remember I took 2 weeks, which for me, this is a lot. You guys know me by watching me. I'm like a helium balloon. You can knock me down, but I'm always going to go right back up. I am programmed for happiness. But for 2 weeks, I cried. I was so scared because I'd always planned that with lupus, I could be disabled physically and do my job. I could be in a wheelchair and do my job. But the strokes, I could lose this. And that's all I have. I will never be a professional athlete. I have no other skill set. It's all my brain. That's it. I'm very uncoordinated. I was betting my whole life on my brain. So that was scary. And so I leaned into my friends. I leaned into family. I talked it out. I had some really good friends at the time that I talked about it with. Most people never knew I was sick, but I had some folks that I could really talk to. And then I finally just, I got it all out. And then I was able to recenter myself and say, you know what? I'm still here. Some scary stuff just happened to me. But once again, there's a medicine that can help me. You know, I had my steroids. I had my COX-2 inhibitors for my arthritis. I have my migraine medication, and now I have blood thinners. I did not like injecting myself, but my doctors decided that was the best choice for me. But okay, I have to inject myself every day. But I'm here. I'm alive. I did not have a major stroke. And I had just gotten into my residency, my first choice for residency at UCLA Harbor in Los Angeles. And I said, you know what? I am still the luckiest person on this planet, because once again, the comeback kid is here. And even though I have scary things that have happened to me, I have survived them all. And if you're listening to the sound of my voice right now, so have you. And I decided I would focus again on how lucky I was to have this beautiful life, to continue to be able to live it, to continue to be able to pursue my dreams, to continue to be able to pursue love and connection and fun and purpose, and be a positive force in people's lives, which is why I went into medicine. And I continued on, and I just put it on the shelf with the other stuff and said, you know what? Fear hurts my life, but joy enhances it. And I just focused on what I had. So yes, these are scary diseases. And I think that they are scarier nowadays because the internet, you can find every worst possible thing, including, you can find other bad things. Like I was just talking to someone right before this who thought that her low BUN number meant that she had low blood protein or a liver issue. And I'm like, no, that's totally wrong. Look at your protein, it's normal. This means that you're a plant-based eater who doesn't get toxic urea in her system anymore. Low is healthy, high is bad, right? So sometimes people just get misinformation that makes them more scared, but also just learning about these illnesses, it can be terrifying. And I think you have to stop doing that. And instead, if you're going to search for things that give you hope, search for things that give you answers and solutions, search for things like how to have fun this weekend in my town and get a good dopamine rush, right? Search for those things. But the diseases can't take away your happiness, your joy, your purpose, unless you let it. If you focus on the disease and how scary it is, then that becomes your whole life. But if instead you put it on the shelf, you take care of yourself. I have not had a relapse of my clotting disorder or lupus at all in over 19 years. We're all going to celebrate in October when it's my 20-year anniversary. My kidneys are normal. I do not make blood clots. I do not take any medications for over 19 years. So, but as lucky as I am to have that, which, it's a miracle, right? I still felt lucky even when I had lupus, because I focused always on what I had and not what I was afraid of. And if you're asking me that question, I think maybe you need the same advice. So speaking of that, I know I did a lot of teaching today, so less questions, but I hope that what I gave you helped you even more, because most of you coming here, let me see, 84, 80. Yeah, we've got just under 500 people right now watching. Thank you, all of you who want to spend your time with me this way. That most of you coming here, you've seen me before, you've heard my stuff, you've watched my free classes, you know the protocol, and the issue is, will I stay with it? And what do I need to do to stick with it? So I hope the information I gave you today, and even what I just taught you now, makes the difference for you. Listen, if you keep relapsing and failing on your own and you need more support, there is nothing more important you can do than get the support you need. And, we just finished a rapid recovery group last Friday. It's the best feeling in the world. Thomas, my husband, and I spend the entire day celebrating with every person in the group, and every person who comes on that meeting to celebrate, every one of them has amazing, extraordinary breakthroughs, from the person with MS who no longer uses her cane, 6 weeks, to multiple people who said goodbye lupus nephritis, goodbye lupus, rheumatoid factor gone, Hashimoto's gone, diabetes gone, kidney function up through the roof. It is just extraordinary. But the number one thing people say, even when they reverse their disease, the number one thing that people thank us for is, you've taught us joy. You've taught us happiness. You've taught us the path to living so much more of a fulfilling life than I ever would have had I not gotten sick enough to need your help to begin with. So if that's something you want to do, like I said, our group starts August 22nd. Work on it until then, though. If you're going to join our group at goodbyelupus.com, in the meantime, work to try to get yourself out of this cycle, okay? Like, break the cycle, break the chains, right? Work on this. Don't punish yourself for relapse. Congratulate yourself, because you cannot relapse if you're not taking action, right? Solve the problems. Stick to the plan. Get the support you need. Let people know the support you need. And go after this all the way. I can tell you, sitting on this side of the camera, having beaten lupus over 19 years ago, nothing tastes as good as healthy feels. Nothing feels as thrilling as not being afraid for my health, not being afraid for my labs, and being able to live in service to other people because I feel so good. I want that for you, and I hope this helps. I'll see you next week, Wellness Wednesday, same time, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, I'll be here, and I hope I see you there, and I hope you have great news to celebrate with me too. Bye, guys. I'll see you next time.